welcome to my channel. Today we are going to solve LeetCode 1419, minimum number of frogs croaking problem. So let's first look at the problem statement. The problem statement is that we are given a string of croak of frogs, which represents combination of croak. So from different frogs. That is, multiple frogs can croak at the same time, so multiple croak are mixed. And we need to return the minimum number of different frogs to finish all the croaks in the given string. So minimum number of different frogs. All right. A valid croak means that the frog is frog is printing 5 letters, meaning they go in the correct consequent order, sequentially, C, R, O, A, and the K. Then if so another requirement is that if we don't have a valid combination, in that case we are returning -1. Okay, let's take a look at the examples. I think that it will be more clear. So for example, in the first case, we have 2 croak, one back to back. So in this case, we are returning only 1. Why? Because only one frog is enough to print to yell or whatever, like a croak 2 times, right? So so that's why in this case we are returning 1. Yeah, one frog is yelling croak twice, so as you can see here. So another example is, for example, we have croak, but the letters are mixed. So what's that mean? Means that this frog started to yell, and in the middle of it another frog also started to yell, but as you can see, the letters are in correct order. And since the letters are in correct order, so we cannot it takes at least 2 frogs in order to finish this this yelling, like the given string, the string that we are given for this scenario, it will take at least 2 frogs. And in the example 3, so we are given so this is invalid combination. This is an invalid combination. We are returning -1. Okay, let's see how we are going to solve this problem. Let's see how we are going to solve this problem. So let's take the example of the first one and let's work on it. So we have croak and the croak, right? So how we are going to solve this? First thing that we need to do, we are going to iterate over our string. So let's just put the steps. We are going to iterate. So first we are going to create an we need to calculate the number of times each letter is repeated. So we are going to create an array of integer, size of 5, and we are going to count each of these letters once we encounter them. So we are going to count each letter. So iterate and count. So that's the first thing that we are going to do. What's the second thing? Second thing is we need to pay attention to the order. For example, this may come in different orders. Let's say that the A is here and the O is here. In that case, that would be considered as a not valid scenario, because they should come in correct order. So we need to check order. So check order. What's that mean? It means that for example, number of R's at any time should be equal or less than number of C's, and the same number of O's at any time should be equal or less than number of R's. So otherwise we are going to return -1. Third one, what we are going to do, we are going to check that if we see K, which means that if we encounter k, if we see k, then in that case, what we are going to do, we are going to decrement from our array. So for example, once we are iterating over our string, we are counting, which means that we are incrementing the values for C and C, R, O, A, and K, right? So once we see K, which means that one frog at least, one frog exactly actually, stop croaking. So in that case, we are decrementing the value here and the decrement. All right, and the fourth step that what we need to do, we need to take the least amount of frogs that needs to that is required to finish the finish whole string, right? So for example, in this case, we know that we need only one because they go in order. How we know that? So here we have, let's just count the number of C's repeated. Number of C's are repeated are 2, right? Number of C's repeated are 2. But once we go, number of C's repeated 2. But once we go to the first K is the first K. Once we encounter the first K, we are decrementing 1 minus 1. And then we are taking the whatever value is of the C, right? So for example, the value of the C in this case is 1. Once we go to the fourth step, which means that in that case the value of the C is only 1. So we are gonna introduce one variable, int, let's say a number of frogs. Let me take another color. Number of frogs, right? And we are gonna take the math. We are gonna take the maximum value of the either this value, right? And the whatever is the number of C. So whatever is number of C. C is the first element. So we are adding nums, so or just call it count 0. So for example, in this case, it will return us 1 because once we get here, we already decrement from the count. One C, which means that the one frog. So it will give us 1. So let's take another example. I think that would be more clear. Let's say that we have another case where we have frog like this one, and this one also starts here. Let's say that this one also starts here, and this is also a valid scenario, right? So we are iterating over our array, over our string. And at the time, so the value of C, right? The value of C is the count for C, count for 0, which means that for the C is equals to 2. The moment when we are in this step, when we are started to decrement from each of the from the count, when we start to decrement the size of the the first time when we get to this position, when we take the count 0, it will give us 2. So it means that the two frogs already started to yelling. So then the amount of frogs that we need is at least 2. And that's and we are gonna maintain that, or as we go iterate over our string. At the end, we are gonna get minimum number of frogs that is needed. All right, let's put that to code and see how it works. Let's start. So the first thing that we are gonna do, we are gonna create an array where we are gonna store where we are going to store count for each letter. So in our case, the size of that is 5, right? So another thing is we need to introduce the maximum number of frogs, right? Frogs that we are going to return. It's equals to 0, and we are going to return that. Okay, so now let's go to our solution part. First thing that we are gonna do, as we said, we are gonna iterate over our string. So for that let's do that. So for that we are going to take the character, let's just call it C, and croak of frogs. And to char array, right? As far as I remember. Okay. So what we need to do, we need to, if we encounter, so we need to then consider each case. If the C is equals to, in our case, if the C is equals to the first character C, then in that case, what we are gonna do, we are gonna increment the count for 0. We are gonna increment that, right? And exactly the same thing we are gonna do for the other letters. So let's just put the else if, and so we are going to do for the others. So 5 times. If it is equals to R, then we are incrementing the first. If it equals to O, then we are incrementing the second. If it equals to A, then we are incrementing the third one. If it equals to K, then fifth element in the array. Okay, so we are incrementing that. The next thing that we need to do, we need to check that if the order is correct, right? As we said, let's say that at any point, if count 0, count 1 is more than count 0, count 0, and again, so we can just copy paste this 5 times. So 4 times actually. So if count 0 is more than 1 is more than 0, or count 2 more than 1, so or count 3 is more than 2, and the count 4 is more than 3. So in that case, so this is invalid scenario, and we are returning -1 right away, right? -1. Okay, if we don't have that scenario, so we are going further, and if the next one is, so first we're iterating, then we are checking the correct order. The next step is we are going to check if C equals to K. If C equals to K. If it equals to K, then in that case, what we are going to do, we are going to decrement all values, right? So we are going to go in another for loop. So int I equals to 0, I is less than 5, and I plus plus, sorry, plus plus. So then we are going to, for count I, we are going to decrement, right? So we are going to decrement once we see K. That is the another step. But one more thing that we need to do, we need to check the maximum number of frogs. Maximum number of frogs, that would be equal to, as we have, I have already explained in the solution part, in the step-by-step walkthrough part. So we need to take the maximum of this number of frogs, right? And the first count 0, right? So for example, in the first case, once we are in this position, right? So C never will be 2 in case of croak. C never will be 2 because the first case finishes before the second one starts, and the same one is with the other one. Let's say that the other case, when we have this one croak and the another croak is in between of that. So in this case we will have, once we get to this point, once we get here, so C will be equals to 2. That's why we are gonna set the max number of frogs to 2. Okay, I hope it's clear. All right, so after that, after we finalize our we considered all the cases, what we need to do, we need to for loop it one more time and check that whether there is any of the if. So once we get to this point, the count for each of them should be 0. If it's not 0, then it means that yeah, by the way, in this case, if else, we need to put -1, return -1, because it has to be one of these cases. So if the count count I is not equal to 0, so then we are returning -1. And if we pass all these cases, then we are just returning our maximum number of frogs. Okay, that's it. Let's run and see that how it works. All right. Yeah, we forgot to put here. I guess in all cases. Okay, one more time. Okay. Okay, so incompatible types, yeah, equals. All right, great. It works as expected. Let's go over it one more time. As I've already explained in the explanation part, so in the walkthrough part. So first thing that we do, we iterate. So here, right, the first one, we iterate, and the count. Actually, this is the one. So iterate and the count. So the next one is we are checking the order, right? So we are checking that if they are in correct order or not. Check order, second. And third one is that if we see k, then in that case, we are decrementing. When third one is that if there is k, so which means that the frogs stop to croaking. So in that case, we decrement. Okay, and the other one, the fourth step is we are taking the maximum. Take maximum number of frogs at the time. So what's that mean? We are taking at the time, but we need to in this case, for example, right, in the cases that I explained earlier, when it's a croak and the two croaks started to croak at the same time, in that case we need at least two frogs to finish this scenario. And at the end we are just checking that if there is any, let's say that there is extra letter introduced, so in that case we are checking the count should be 0. If it's not, then in that case we are returning -1. If we pass all these cases, then we are just returning a maximum number of frogs. All right, that's it for today. I hope you like my content. If you like it, please hit the like button and subscribe my channel. See you next time. Bye.